Welcome to Old School Sundays. I'm your host, Odell. Let's get into some history. It's 1972 in Knoxville, Tennessee. The air is thick with tobacco smoke and tension. The South is still healing from the scars of segregation, or at least pretending to. And inside Neyland Stadium, 70,000 fans rise to their feet, watching something they've never seen before. Under center stands a young black quarterback named Condredge Holloway, calm, compact, and composed, the first black quarterback to ever start in the SEC. Every snap he takes is history in motion, and every completion feels like an act of rebellion. For the first time, the most sacred position in Southern football, the general, the thinker, the man trusted to command white teammates, belongs to someone who looks like him. But behind the cheers, there's hate mail in his locker. Behind every touchdown, there are whispers from scouts too small, too risky, too different. They call him the Artful Dodger, a nickname meant to describe his elusiveness. But in truth, it described his life, dodging stereotypes, dodging injustice, dodging a system built to keep him in his place. By the time he left Tennessee, Holloway had become a hero in the South, the kind that could silence a stadium with his feet and inspire a movement with his poise. But when the NFL draft came calling, the phone never rang. Because in 1975, you could be brilliant, brave, and battle tested and still be too black to lead. And that's where the story really begins. When Condredge Holloway first walked onto the University of Tennessee campus in 1971, the whispers started immediately. The idea of a black quarterback leading a major SEC team felt like blasphemy in the Deep South. In Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi, integration was still fresh enough to sting, and football was sacred ground. Coach Bill Battle saw something in Holloway others refused to: intelligence, precision, and leadership wrapped in quiet defiance. He wasn't the biggest player on the field, barely 5'10", 185 pounds, but he moved like smoke, slipping through defenders and expectations alike. Battle made the boldest move in SEC history, naming Holloway his starting quarterback. From that moment, every game became a battlefield. Death threats were mailed to his dorm. Fans screamed racial slurs from the stands. Opposing defenders took late hits just to send a message. And yet, Holloway never showed fear. Every play call, every audible was a statement: I belong here. Then came the moment that silenced the skeptics: the 1972 opener against Georgia Tech. First drive, third down, the pocket collapsed, Holloway spun left, reversed, dodged three defenders, and fired 40 yards downfield, a touchdown. Neyland Stadium erupted. The roar wasn't just for points, it was for history breaking wide open. That season, he led Tennessee to a 10-2 record, capped with a Blue Bonnet Bowl victory over LSU. He finished with nearly 1,000 passing yards, another 500 rushing, and enough respect to make critics swallow their prejudice for a moment. But behind the cheers, the NFL was watching and already writing him off. The scouting reports called him undersized, scrambler, better suited for receiver. Condredge Holloway had just conquered the SEC, but the league he dreamed of still saw him as an experiment, not a quarterback. And the higher he rose, the quieter the applause became. By the spring of 1975, Condredge Holloway had done everything right. 3 seasons at Tennessee, all SEC honors, record setting numbers, a degree of composure under pressure that made veteran coaches whisper, that kid's different. He'd broken every stereotype the South threw at him. But when the NFL draft arrived, the phone never rang. The scouting reports were damning in their faint praise: excellent athlete, good mobility, strong arm for his size. And then the coded words that sealed his fate: too short to see over the line, limited as a pocket passer, could be converted to receiver or defensive back. They said it softly, but it meant something louder: too black to be trusted with the huddle. In an era where teams were still debating whether a black quarterback could read defenses or lead white players, Holloway's brilliance terrified them. His confidence, his command, his refusal to smile through prejudice, it all broke the unwritten rules. Behind closed doors, scouts made comparisons that sounded flattering but were meant to contain him. He's got quickness like a running back. Maybe he could play safety. He's not an NFL style quarterback. Translation: we can't let him be the face of a franchise. When the final round ended, Holloway sat by the phone in silence. No call, no camp invite, no chance. Meanwhile, the same teams that ignored him drafted slower, less accurate white quarterbacks and called them projects. In the official record books, Holloway's name simply disappears after 1974. But in truth, it was erased. Quietly, deliberately, and permanently. That could have been the end of his story. But Condredge Holloway wasn't built to beg for acceptance. So when America closed its doors, he packed his bags and crossed the border. Because if the NFL wouldn't give him a huddle, Canada would. The call that never came from the NFL was replaced by one that changed everything. From Ottawa, Canada. The Ottawa Rough Riders of the Canadian Football League didn't see a 5'10" black athlete, they saw a quarterback, period. When Holloway landed in Canada in 1975, the air felt different. Colder, yes, but cleaner. Reporters didn't ask about his color. Fans didn't boo his leadership. Coaches didn't question his intelligence. For the first time in his football life, he was free to be what he'd always been, the man under center. And from his very first start, he proved exactly what America had refused to believe. Rolling right, he pump faked a defender out of his cleats and launched a 55-yard bomb downfield. Touchdown. Ottawa fans went wild. The headlines read, "The Artful Dodger Arrives." In his rookie season, Holloway became a phenomenon. The CFL's answer to Frank Tarkenton and Joe Namath combined. His quickness left linemen grasping at air, and his accuracy shredded defenses built for pocket statuses. In Canada, they didn't call him a runner, they called him unstoppable. By his second year, he was among the top passers in the league. In 1983, with the Toronto Argonauts, he finally got what the NFL had denied him: a championship. That year, he led Toronto to its first Grey Cup victory in 31 years, earning Grey Cup MVP honors. Up north, he became a star. Kids wore his number, broadcasters praised his mind. His name filled highlight reels. But back home in the States, silence. No coverage, no recognition, no NFL redemption story. Holloway didn't just find success, he found vindication. The same quarterback America refused to believe in had just led a nation to glory. And yet, even as confetti fell in Toronto, Holloway knew one truth would always haunt him: he'd become a legend in the wrong country. In Canada, Condredge Holloway became a household name. He spent over a decade in the CFL, first in Ottawa, then Toronto, and finally British Columbia, rewriting record books one pass at a time. By the time he hung up his cleats, he'd thrown for over 25,000 yards, won two division titles, and a Grey Cup championship. He was named a CFL All Star multiple times and later enshrined in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. He had the arm of a technician, the legs of an escape artist, and the brain of a coach long before he became one. But the most remarkable stat wasn't measured in yards or touchdowns, it was in dignity. Through it all, Holloway never took shots at the NFL that ignored him. He never ranted or demanded credit. Instead, he kept his head high, letting the film speak for itself. And when American reporters finally caught wind of his dominance north of the border, the tone was bittersweet. One journalist wrote, "Condredge Holloway is the best quarterback America never saw." But that was only half the truth. America didn't miss him, America avoided him. The league that made heroes out of underdogs couldn't bring itself to celebrate the one who exposed its biggest lie: that talent had a color. By the time the NFL finally began to accept black quarterbacks in the 1980s, with Doug Williams, Warren Moon, and later Randall Cunningham, Holloway's name had already faded from their broadcasts. Yet, if you looked closely at the way those men played, the mobility, the poise, the dual threat style, you could see Holloway's DNA in every snap. He'd already shown the world what a modern quarterback could be. The NFL just wasn't brave enough to call it by name. And deep down, Holloway knew he hadn't been forgotten, he'd been buried. Decades passed, and yet every time a black quarterback stepped on an NFL field, you could still feel Condredge Holloway's shadow in the pocket. When Doug Williams hoisted the Lombardi Trophy in 1988 as the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, He was asked what the moment meant. His answer was humble, but the truth was deeper. That door had been cracked open long before by men like Holloway who never had the chance to walk through it. Then came Warren Moon, another American star denied a fair shot in the NFL who had to go north just like Condredge to prove himself. Moon dominated the CFL, earned a second chance, and finally became one of the greatest passers in NFL history. He often said, without guys like Holloway, I wouldn't have had a path. And the legacy didn't stop there. The style that once made scouts nervous, the scrambling, the improvisation, the quick reads, became the blueprint for a new generation. Steve McNair's grit, Russell Wilson's control, Kyler Murray's agility, Lamar Jackson's fire. All of it traces back to a man who was doing it in orange and white decades earlier. Even at Tennessee, the same program that once risked scandal to start him, Holloway's name now hangs in reverence. There's a Holloway Plaza outside Neyland Stadium, a monument to the man who changed what was possible. He even returned to the university, working in its athletic department, mentoring young players who often had no idea how much of their opportunity even existed because of him. Time may have erased him from NFL films, but history always finds its way home. Every Sunday, when a young black quarterback commands the huddle, confident, poised, unafraid, he's speaking Holloway's language. The NFL may have written him out of the story, but it could never erase his fingerprints from the game. Condredge Holloway never threw a pass in the NFL, not one. And yet, his spirit echoes in every quarterback who's ever had to prove that greatness doesn't have a color. He didn't rage against the system, he exposed it quietly, beautifully, and on his own terms. While others waited for opportunity, he built his own across the border and turned exile into empire. Canada may have given him a league, but his talent gave him immortality. Back home, the NFL moved on, pretending it had discovered the idea of dual threat quarterback decades later. But those who knew the truth remembered the blueprint, a 5'10" kid from Tennessee who had outplayed prejudice itself. Today, when Patrick Mahomes threads a no look pass, when Lamar Jackson turns broken plays into symphonies, when Jalen Hurts commands a locker room with quiet conviction, that's Condredge's DNA. His story isn't about revenge, it's about redemption through legacy. And maybe that's the real victory. Not the stats, not the trophies, but the fact that his name still makes people ask, how did the NFL miss this? He was never too small, never too reckless, never too raw. He was just too black for the league he could have transformed, and too far ahead of time that didn't deserve him. But the game finally caught up. And now, every Sunday, it plays in his image. Because the league that once refused to see him can never stop reflecting him. If you remember Condredge Holloway or lived through the golden eras, like this video and subscribe to the channel because I'll have more history coming up soon.